I'd recommend watching my video on GSC Unused Slowbro before watching this one, because a lot of information in that also applies here. Anyway, enjoy. As a Pokemon, Slowking is almost identical to Slowbro. Slowking is an all-around solid Pokemon in GSC Unused. It's got a great offensive and defensive typing, it's pretty strong, and it's rather tanky. Slowking, like Slowbro, is a fantastic tank in the metagame. It exclusively uses Rest Hawk sets, usually running both Surf and Psychic for the best matchup against Nidoqueen, Granbull, and Gyarados. Slowking is good on offensive teams, providing them with a solid tank that can check threats and offensively threaten the opposing team. The only real difference between the two is that Slowking trades Slowbro's 110 physical defense for 110 special defense at the cost of 80 physical defense. Otherwise, Slowbro and Slowking are virtually identical. For a few key reasons though, Slowking has never been as metagame defining as its brother. Slowking trades Slowbro's immaculate physical bulk for special bulk, but Slowbro's physical bulk is the more valuable of the two. Slowbro matches up far better against common Pokemon like Granbull, Piloswine, Dodrio, and Scyther when compared to Slowking. Slowking's special defense is nice, but it still matches up poorly against most of the tier's special attackers like Mr. Mime and Lantern. This is due to its unfortunate weakness to Electric, a very common attacking type in the metagame. In addition to competing with Slowbro, Slowking has to compete with Hypno, one of the best Pokemon in the entire metagame. Hypno is also a specially bulky Psychic type, but it crucially lacks Slowking's electric weakness, has better utility moves, and is much faster. Hypno and Slowbro were both top tier Pokemon who competed heavily with Slowking, so the Royal Pokemon was often overlooked in team building. Despite this though, Slowking's advantages kept it a very relevant Pokemon throughout the years. Slowking is up much better against mixed attackers than Slowbro is, due to its higher special defense. Nidoqueen and Gyarados are two most common mixed attackers in the metagame, and Slowking is one of the best answers to both of them, compared to Slowbro, who is shaky against the former and outright bad against the latter. Both Nidoqueen and Gyarados have to use special, non-stab coverage moves to break through Slow Twins, so Slowking is superior in the matchup. This also makes Slowking better against Arcanine and Feraligatr, who use Crunch to try to break through Slowbro, which Slowking took much less damage from. There are a number of Pokemon who use non-stab special moves to try break through Slowbro, and Slowking is superior against all of them. Slowking uses Thunder Wave more commonly than Slowbro does, in order to have the best matchup possible against Mr. Mime. Since Slowking takes less damage from Thunder, it can stay in and duel with Mr. Mime safer than Slowbro can. Rest Hawk Mr. Mime is still a serious issue though, so don't go building teams that use Slowking as your sole Mr. Mime check. Zap Cannon is even decent on Slowking, since this lets it heavily damage water types and spread paralysis, if it hits that is. Plus, while Slowking is much less physically bulky than Slowbro, its physical bulk isn't bad, so it can take on Pokemon like Dodrio and Piloswine if absolutely necessary. Slowking isn't a bad Pokemon at all, it's still strong, bulky, and able to check common Pokemon. It's just more specific when compared to Slowbro and Hypno, and does fall into that jack of all trades, master of none category when you compare it to them. Slowking, like Slowbro, was trapped in underused BL until around 2010 when it was finally unleashed onto the metagame alongside Slowbro and Kingdra. Slowking didn't have as big an effect as its brother did, but it was still considered a great choice for years. Throughout the 2010s, Slowking was a pretty good Pokemon, even though it competed with the at the time second in command of the metagame in Slowbro. Double Slowtwin teams that used both Slowbro and Slowking were popular for a time, making the best out of both Pokemon's advantages for a double tank assault. Slowking was commonly used in offensive teams that needed a specially bulky tank that wasn't as passive as Hypno was. Offensive teams especially appreciated Slowking's excellent Nidoqueen matchup. It was also common on paralysis spam teams, supporting Pokemon like Sandslash and Granbull with Thunder Wave. At the turn of the decade though, people started to really realise that there wasn't much reason to use Slowking when Hypno and Slowbro existed. I haven't even mentioned Blastoise yet, who exploded in popularity around 2010 and was another Pokemon that Slowking had to compete with. While Blastoise is far more passive, and like Slowking's Psychic typing, its access to rapid spin and greater speed make it the far better water type on defensive teams. This is when things really started to go downhill for both Slowbro and Slowking, as the tier went in a direction that did not benefit either of them. Slowking had a rather poor matchup against Pokemon that were becoming popular, like Lantern, Resthawk, Mr. and Double-Edged Scyther, had its defensive prowess greatly hindered by the poor speed and the Spike's vulnerability, and it still, after all this time, faced stiff competition from other water and psychic types. As a result, Slowking is barely seen anymore. The poor thing is lucky to get more than 3 uses in team tournaments, and it just doesn't fit in with the metagame. Is Slowking a bad Pokemon? Certainly not. It's still a very good tank that can be great in certain situations, but ultimately, Slowking struggles to find a place in modern GSC Unused. Hey, at least its spray has a big smile.